Alright, so I've been playing Unknown for about 6 or 7 months now, and that's actually a little scary that it's already been, that long. But I've noticed that a lot of newer Unknown players aren't doing some of these tricks that I've picked up just by playing and consistently practicing and trying to improve on my Unknown skills every day. I kind of want to make an organized guide in quotes of some of the best tricks and easiest things you can do that are small but super easy to pick up on. And being able to practice some of these tricks will hopefully make you a way better Unknown player. Before we even start, if you're new to Unknown and you want to get better, I would seriously recommend what I like to call the wee ball method. And the reason I call it the wee ball method is what I think you should be doing as a newer player to any killer. Focus on what parts of the killer you enjoy and try to strengthen them. So, Unknown, there's a lot of things survivors can do to trick you. Unknown is almost a constant back and forth with the survivors. Like, there is a lot going on for the Unknown. As you play, as you face more and more experienced survivors, sometimes it will be difficult to land a hit. If you're having trouble, in my opinion, I believe that if you want to learn and get better with the Unknown, the best way is to start taking those chases that you do struggle with. Figure out how you can counter them. These scenarios are very good for learning how some of the best players will try to counter you. And trust me, you will face them sometimes. Playing Unknown is pretty interesting because he does have a lot of counter ability. And for very good players, it's very easy for them to read your projectile. So being honest, if you can tell that it just isn't working, if you try to snipe someone across the map without line of sight and they always dodge your projectile, you're gonna have to switch it up a bit. I would seriously recommend to always take some of the hardest chases you can and throw a few matches if you really want to learn and get better. I promise you, DBD is more than just winning, man. Find what you enjoy about Dead by Daylight and keep playing it and keep practicing, because that is personally what I enjoy about it. And if that doesn't work for you, great, I'm happy for you. So with that being said, that's a great way to introduce, I guess, the sort of mentality that you should have if you want to get better at playing Unknown, in my opinion. So with that being said, I do want to go over some of the actual tricks that I've came up with and noticed. When you're chasing someone and they're a little wavy, zigzagging back and forth, my very first step I would tell you is when you're trying to fire your UVX, you always want to try and predict where a survivor will be going, and you really want to avoid directly hitting them as much as you can. Survivors will run towards you, so if you want to try and hit them when they run towards you, sometimes it might be better off to just go for an M1 at this point, if they're too close to you and you can't look all the way down. Or if you're lucky, you can try and use the environment to your advantage. So if you're around a wall and they run into you, you could try to insta-pop the UVX on a wall, and it would instantly injure them, and you might even, if you're lucky, be able to two-tap them. So that is what I would do if a survivor starts running towards you. So when you're chasing someone and you want to hit them from far away, or kind of close to you, like a medium distance, it sounds stupid, but try looking down. And it sounds really stupid. Why would I look down if I want to hit them? Looking down is an easy way to hit people that are at a medium distance from you. And I've noticed a lot of Unknown players don't actually do this. Players that are brand new to Unknown, they don't actually do this. And this is why they miss a lot of shots, because they kind of just hold their camera at a centered angle and their UVX almost always goes past the survivor. So yeah, think about this. Try to look down when you're aiming. If you do have trouble aiming, you could also consider using a crosshair. I personally don't, and I don't have any great recommendations, but Behavior Interactive have given permission and have basically clarified that they are not banning people for using crosshairs. So if you want to try and use a crosshair, maybe it'll help you. I can't say for sure if it does. I do just fine without it, but hey, I know a lot of people do. So, if you see a survivor holding W and they're just looking at you to get rid of weaken, when I'm aiming at them, an interesting thing that I do is I don't actually look at them. I actually flick my mouse towards them when I'm ready to fire. so it confuses them into thinking I'm not actually aiming at them. If you have enough line of sight and game sense to track multiple survivors at once, you can actually take advantage of this and trick the survivor you're chasing into thinking you're aiming at them, as well as tricking the other survivors who are in the distance doing their own thing. And then you could switch what you're doing and attack the survivor in the distance really fast, and that can trick them almost every time. I seriously recommend trying that if you ever get the opportunity. It is so fun. One of my favorite parts about Unknown is actually chasing multiple people at once. One more tip for mostly using UVX, I want you to take advantage of the projectile's hitbox. So if you ever chase a survivor into an area where they can't dodge, this is like, let's say an enclosed space where they basically can only go one direction. If you try to dodge, you're just gonna get hit either way. So take advantage of these opportunities to attack people. And the final one is, if you can't get an opportunity to attack someone, if you lose line of sight for whatever reason, you still might have the opportunity to hit. For example, at a maze tile, if you were to bounce off the wall, after the survivor loses line of sight, you could bounce your UVX towards them, and it would still injure them. Always think about the environment whenever you want to use your power, especially if you don't have reliable line of sight. Alright, these are a bit of interesting but fun things that I like to do. And the very first one is line of sight manipulation and the standstill tech. Of course, everything has to be a tech, right? So I call this line of sight manipulation, and this is basically this really weird but unique way that I play Unknown. And I almost, like, I break line of sight and I kind of just stand still. And it tricks survivors way more than you'd think to just stand still. It also takes advantage of the weekend buffer that survivors have. So if you do miss a shot, what I would recommend doing is being patient and just hanging around for a bit, you know, out of line of sight. Once your cooldown is back and you think you have enough time to try and land another shot, you break out of that line of sight blocker and you try to hit them as fast as you can. Survivors have a weekend buffer, and this means that if they look at you for, let's say, a second, if they were to look away or you break line of sight with them, there's still a small window where the weekend bar will continue to go down. So, as the Unknown, you can take advantage of this. So by this, I mean, don't just blindly hold W if you can help it. If you really are trying to go for M2s only, I definitely recommend playing in this way. It's very fun, and it's very different, you know? It really tricks people sometimes. Alright, hallucinations. So, one of the first things I would say is if you're trying to find a reliable spot for your hallucination, one thing I would do is consider which areas will be populated by survivors, and then try to avoid placing your hallucinations there. So, consider putting your hallucination, obviously, out of line of sight, far enough away from gens and other open areas, but close enough to where you can still catch up and make it to where you need to go. If you start doing this, it will be a lot more difficult and time consuming for the survivors to pick off your hallucinations. However, you do have this small trade-off where it will take longer to get to where you need to go. Basically, just be smart and consider where you're placing your hallucinations whenever you want. And a very cool trick, and this is my favorite thing that I've ever found out, and it kind of like just made me love the character even more because I found it midstream and I just started freaking out. There is a unique animation for when the survivor is dispelling a hallucination. So this means through the wall, you as the Unknown can see your little hallucination twitching in a unique way, and that's how you can tell if a survivor is dispelling it. This is such a small detail, like you need like a very close eye to catch it. But when it does work, it is amazing. And I seriously recommend everyone to try to keep a close eye on this. Don't throw games for it because it's a lot harder than you think to get value. But there are scenarios where you actually can. And it is just so cool and so satisfying. I promise. I seriously recommend that. If you ever catch it, try to take advantage of it. Alright, for the last part, I have how to practice orbitals. As you play Unknown, you will get better at aiming and directly firing at people, but you also will want to try and start to practice landing shots out of line of sight, like orbitals on gens, so you can weaken without a fair warning to the survivors. If you're trying to learn how to hit orbitals and hit people from out of line of sight, from long shots, like super long range. I would definitely keep practicing, put a heavy emphasis on focusing on your orbitals, especially on gens. Just keep this practice and muscle memory of aiming up and how far you can actually hit by aiming up. If you keep practicing this with time, you'll be able to do it pretty consistently, and you'll even have a very good understanding of how far you actually can fire. And then, if you get really good at it, you could start using second floors and heights to your advantage to get an even further distance. But yeah, those were a few of my little favorite tips that I've came up with by playing Unknown. But if you want to keep playing Unknown and get better, my number one tip is really just to keep playing and have fun. Find what parts of Unknown you enjoy and take advantage of it. But yeah, that's about it. If you have any tips that I missed, definitely let me or the others know in the comments, because dude, there's so much to this killer, man, that like I really think that with time, I'm still not gonna know everything. So if you have any cool spots, tricks, anything like that, definitely let me know. But yeah, that's it. Thank you.